The Ahab and the GTO were the two sort of key vehicles. The Ahab was the 30-foot-long submersible that Yorgi's scientists had created to travel the world with Yorgi's lethal weapons in, which was something that we wanted to look as though it was semi-believable, but have a slightly sort of fantastic look to it.
Gavin designed the Ahab with the concept illustrator, did a fantastic job using the computer programs 3D, and was using Lightwave, he was using Photoshop. Lightwave was a very useful tool because it's fairly scalable. And he built the whole Ahab as an illustration in 3D, which then he could texture map and he could show as a 3D object, rotate, show different views, shadow. But it's very easy to show what it would look like from every angle and what it would look like in action. So the illustrations were really used to build the Ahab.
We had good reference points from some real submersibles, scientific submersibles, and then we added the slightly streamlined sort of supersonic look to this thing, so you could believe that it could move pretty fast above the water on hydrofoils and then submerge when it needed to submerge and be run by radio and remote control via sort of solar panels as well.
The drawings were actually able to be used directly to mill pieces in the effects shop for the construction of Ahab. Using an axial sort of miller, they were able to actually cut out huge pieces that then molds could be made from. The sculptors used to make molds. The sculptors used some full-size lines that were taken from the computer to actually use full-size to make screes for plaster. But to do all the things Ahab had to do, like have parts that came out, like the rockets that extend, the missiles that raise, the doors that open, it also had to have hydraulics. It had to have heavy, aluminum tubing and fiberglass skins and cast pieces that were all going to work together to give the impression that this thing was just a seamless ship operating at high speed that was, carrying liquid death to Prague. So Rob was very clear about what he wanted, and it placed a lot of demands on the actual building of this thing. It had to do a lot of things, and yet it had to actually fly. It had to really move. He said, I want this thing to be fast, fast, fast.
Ladies and gentlemen, 1967 General Motors GTO. 325 horsepower, 389 cubic inches of raw man-meat power. Step on inside and check out the gadgets that I'm unleashed within this film. We've got everything and anything you need. I mean, you got a speedometer, okay, boring, done. Every car has that. My Prism has a speedometer. You got your gauge, you got your rocket launchers, you got your parachute, you got your oil slick, you got your GPS, you got your sonar, you got your depth finder, you got your popcorn maker, you got your Hot Pockets, you got your Frappuccino machine, all of that, but you don't have a horn.
The GTO was something slightly different, and Rob was obviously very interested in what the car should be, and in the end, the decision was a GTO. And then there was questions of how many gadgets and how many things would it have on it.
Harold Belker is a concept artist who's worked on a lot of movies recently in Hollywood, but he comes out of car design. He worked on some of the initial drawings of the GTO, and you can't change a GTO too much because it's got to still be a GTO. But he has a beautiful eye, and he does beautiful artwork, and it really helped sell the idea of the GTO, not just design it, but also show Rob and show the studio what it could be to make it the car for the movie.
There are two different ways of designing or handling a movie vehicle. One is much more budget intense. You need a few $100,000 to build a car from nothing. And then with XXx and the GTO, it was all the gadgets, but still make it look cool. The original color was a faded green. When the car sits too long under the sun, how it all kind of rusty and, it was ugly.
We looked through some colors that really are changeable in light, and there was a beautiful one that really altered between purple and blue, depending on what light you look at it in. And that's kind of exciting, so you don't really have to choose. You can get the best of both worlds.
Pretty much when it came to the interior, we started with a dashboard. And there wasn't going to be a car that had a special Spy dashboard. It was sort of made to fit overnight. Here it was more, let's add on stuff. And we went through the stages where I did 3 different levels of add-on dials, and then you do some hypothetical spy stuff in there, a radar screen. And Gavin, I remember Gavin said, no, more, we need more.
The dashboard has just become this mad sort of Heath Robinson array of instruments and controls and buttons, and it's a very unsophisticated thing, but fits into our world of sort of low-end technology, but sort of high-end results. And it looks a much more uncoordinated beast, but it has a personality all of its own.
In an ideal world, I would call a car a character in the movie. But that's, that's biased because, that's what I work on. So I like to see as much of a vehicle in the movie as possible. So when I watch a movie, I get critical about that sort of aspect, but it's still just a vehicle.
Harold was good about kind of kicking it into another level and still maintaining the spirit of the GTO.